I'll request Jacqueline to start our session today.
Today, I'd like to share a short reading from a publication called Who Am I? The Teachings of Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharishi. Who am I? Non-yar. All living beings desire to be happy always, without any misery. In everyone, there is observed supreme love for oneself, and happiness alone is the cause of love. In order, therefore, to gain that happiness, which is one's nature, and which is experienced in the state of deep sleep, where there is no mind, one should know oneself. To achieve this, the path of knowledge, the inquiry in the form of who am I, is the principal means.
So let's go through this as to why Bhagwan says this inquiry is important, is essential. So you tell me, Jackie, why do you think that this inquiry is important?
Well, the inquiry is, for me, the doorway to being fully alive.
Yes. Let's also get into the depth of what this word means, being fully alive.
I liked, excuse me, I
Yeah.
liked the word you used, essential.
Yeah. What does it mean to be fully alive? Yes, please. Go on.
Well, for me, I associate that idea with the light of one's own consciousness. How exactly, I can't say, but there is some kind of correlation for me.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And the light of consciousness is basically the absence of the thinking mind. It shines clear and forth in the absence of the thinking mind. So that is what it means to be fully alive. Means alive with vitality, alive with complete spontaneity. Someone who is spontaneous in action does not mean that he does not think. It does not mean that he's reckless. It does not mean that he's not careful about his actions or think about consequences that may be served to himself or others. It simply means is that he or she acts according to their own nature, nature that has been given to them by the Creator. And that is what it means to be fully alive. So, the person who is fully alive is not on a quest of self improvement because he is not concerned with the personal self, the small self. He, his only goal is to be, which means to be aligned with the eternal self, self with the capital S. That is what Sri Ramana Maharishi says. So, being alive means being spontaneous in life and living. And in that, it also means that acting and reacting according to one's conditioning without worrying about right or wrong. And you must have seen that I think we use this term for people who are sometimes completely immersed in in indulgences, and we say, oh, they're completely alive, they are they're attending functions, parties, they're mixing with so many people, they're doing so many activities. But that is not what Bhagwan is trying to point out here. Being fully alive means living without the sense of separate self, living in communion, in union with everything. Because then it is the end of concepts. So I would like your view on how concepts can distort our viewpoint and divert us from this path that Bhagwan is suggesting. And I would also like your opinion on how modern modern education, or let's not say modern education, but let's say how prevalent belief in individuality, which is forced, how does it contrast with what is Bhagwan saying here? He's giving us the opposite message. He's saying lose your individuality, but we are tied up to the fact that we're tied up to the belief that we are individuals, and we are trying to improve this small self.
It's like, in fact, one can not attend many social functions whatsoever and be more than well on their way to being fully alive. Uh, it's not a performative state, I would say. It's not limited by concepts as far as, and this is, I'm always struggling to put this in words, but I'll do my best. Concepts to me, um, okay, okay. When I was traveling last winter, I stopped at a historic site in the southwestern United States where there were cave paintings and drawings on stone. And one of the symbols drawn on the stone that was said to be thousands of years old was a circle, and one was a spiral, and one was a parrot. And they gave no interpretation of why these symbols were important to these ancient people who lived there, supposedly, from what we know. There's very little that is known about where they came from and what they were doing. But to me, as soon as I saw those, I associated my own meaning with them. And I feel like it's relevant to me even today when, and here's how, when we are bombarded with concepts, and you mentioned education, and that's one way that we are bombarded with concepts. It's like taking, um, it's like taking an unlimited creative mind and compartmentalizing it and sort of giving it a script. And the metaphor of a parrot is fairly apt to me because you see this, we see this, and we were all like this, I think. Maybe sometimes still are sometimes, uh, that you find yourself repeating what concepts have been handed to one. And sort of like a parrot will mimic sounds without creating any new sounds, just mimicking. And to me, that's the best I can do in discussing how concepts show up for me, how I see them in myself and others. And to go beyond those concepts, there has to be, I have noticed, a certain level of um, less small self consciousness because one may sound a little well, you're not you're not mimicking the same
Yes,
sounds.
it is identification with the separate self, which is the ego, which is the identified aspect of consciousness. So we think that automatically assume, we start with this assumption that that is real. So all our journey is, let's improve this. Let's improve this human organism. Let's make it more efficient. Let's make it better. And we think that that is what happiness is. But, when one is on a spiritual path, one realizes that no matter what enhancements you do to this, psyche, it's not going to lead to the happiness that one seeks. So Bhagwan here, I think, is telling us that give up your sense of individuality. Now, it does not mean that, you know, one starts, one just starts pretending as if, is not an individual. Of course, in appearances, the individuality is there. It is an appearance. But it is like what he's trying to say is don't limit yourself to that limited entity. Do not think that your individuality is the only reality. And somehow, if you believe that you are rest from the separate, then that is a mistake. That is what Bhagwan is saying here. Like he's saying, know your essential self, know your real self. And for that, he says that this question is very important. Who am I? Because ultimately, everyone has this inquiry. Everyone goes through this inquiry at some point in their life. It may not happen in this particular format, as in it may not happen to everyone, as Ramana Maharishi says, but everyone has questioned Why am I here? What is my purpose here? What is existence? What is non-existence? How can I get out of this? You know? And to these questions, there really is no answer. So Bhagwan says that just go to this I that you think is real. Just go to this. Just be with this I. And what he says is that when you when the I inverts on itself as the I, and it is not allowed to expand as I am this or I am that, then eventually it goes back to its source from where it actually arose, which is the new noumenon, the pure consciousness, the unmanifest potential. That is where it comes from. And that is where it goes back to. So, having tasted that awareness, something changes. Now, what changes is that once the I gets to see its true nature, it is not uh, it is not concrete anymore. It does not believe in its existence as a solid. Um, you know, its belief in its existence is not as solid. But when we reinforce this message that we are individuals and we are separate from the rest, and we constantly create this differentiation between me and the other, I am like this, others are like that, then what happens is that we keep that separation alive. And when that separation is alive, then we constantly experience suffering because we live in constant comparison. And sometimes that can be very painful because when we live in comparison, we are always trying to better ourselves, best ourselves, in the hope that the better version of me would somehow bring me peace and happiness. But that is the trap, I think. Yes, go on.
I mean, where did we get this idea that we're not good enough? That's what I wonder.
More importantly, who thinks that he or she is,
Mm, true.
know, what is that which is trying to improve? It again, that's what I'm saying. The all problems, they start with this assumption that I am separate, that I'm the subject. Whereas all the teachings are saying you're not the subject, you are the object. The small you, the small self is the object, it is not the subject. The subject itself is the whole consciousness in which this whole dynamic of duality, which is the subject object relationship, is playing out. So to think that one is the subject is actually usurping the subjectivity of the pure subject. And that is what ego does. That is what Ramesh would say, that we usurp the subjectivity of the pure subject. That means we say, well, let me explain what he actually meant by that. What he meant by that is like, I know better than God. So, when we say things should be like this, things should be like that, my freedom should be like this. Now, the thing is, I want enlightenment, I want freedom, I want liberation, but I want it on my own terms. I want it the way I imagine it should be. So some people actually, I do get emails and messages sometimes where they ask like, how much vipassana should I do to become enlightened? And or they would, so they have a process mapped out in their mind. The mind has already mapped out a process. It has objectified, it has conceptualized enlightenment, and it is saying that I reach there using this method. So the ego mind says that I believe that it is only through this method that I can reach enlightenment. And what Bhagwan here is pointing out to is, question the just question the existence of this subject, which thinks he or she is not enlightened, or which thinks that they need to do something to become enlightened, or, you know, they live in this whole concept that enlightenment is something which will bring them happiness. Whereas I think most of the teachers have said that life more or less remains the same. Nothing changes. The fundamental human nature does not change even after quote unquote enlightenment happens. But yes, one thing definitely happens. And I would like to put it in this way that ego, having tasted its true nature or having a glimpse of its true nature, is never the same again. It does not mean that it is not reactive. It does not mean that it somehow becomes better. What it simply means is having tasted, having had a glimpse of the reality, it does not cling on to concepts and ideas anymore. It may experience turbulence in a given moment. Let's say when we are upset, when we are emotionally charged, then we may say that, world is a horrible place, it is painful here. But the thing is, that is only happening in the moment of turbulence when there is some kind of emotional, unrest or some sort of psychological thing is going on. When we are peaceful, extremely calm, this does not happen. We do not question life. It's only when we are emotionally charged that we start questioning life, that we start looking for solutions. Have you ever noticed this? We never, actually, none of us never ever want to know about life or anything when we are at peace. And this is what all these masters are pointing to. They're saying all your questions are false. They're saying there's no reality to your questions because you're not getting to the root of your questions, which is the separate self or the ego. So all these masters are pointing us back to our true nature. And the path is through the ego. It is not that you can bypass the ego because ego is not something separate. Ego is also made up of pure knowing, which is consciousness. Consciousness and its content are one. So the nominal, or let's say unmanifest potential, and the consciousness that animates the reality manifestation are actually not two, they're one and the same. Everything is made up of knowing, pure knowing. And that is what Bhagwan says is our true nature. That is what I think in Sufism they use the term essential self. I'm not sure about it, but I think that's what they use, which I feel is love. Love not based on feeling, love not based on emotion, but love as the undercurrent, as a strong undercurrent substratum, which is making all of this possible, all of this experiencing possible, which sometimes is also called cold love in Advaita circles. But it is the one which makes the experiencing possible. So, Sarthak, can we, do you have something for us today? Yes. Okay, hold on. Let me. First of all, how have you been?
I've been excellent, Jagjot ji. How have you been?
Oh, I'm great. Always great. You tell me
I,
what's going on.
I loved seeing those videos in Kasoli. Yeah, they
Oh,
were very peaceful and meditative. Thank you for making them.
you're welcome. You're welcome. Yes, they were beautiful. That was a beautiful experience, actually. And I think me and Jacqueline, we were just walking and we thought we felt so peaceful at that moment, and we thought we'll record something. And it it just came out spontaneously.
Right.
Yeah, it was beautiful. So yeah, hill stations have a totally different charm. I don't know, but they bring out something beautiful.
Jagjot, have you ever seen yourself as a beach person?
Beach person, not really, because I haven't been to many beaches except like I've been to I think two to three beaches in Goa, I believe.
Did you go to Marina Beach when you were in Chennai?
No, no, I didn't stop.
It's a long one. You gotta walk
Okay.
quite a bit there.
I've been to Juhu Beach in Mumbai. So,
Of course,
but ठीक है, वो भी that's also good. That has its own charm.
it had the way. It's just the ocean.
Yes, yes, yes. Now, Goa beaches back in the day used to be very clean. I don't know what's the status now. I've heard
It's been a
some
while.
stories, but yeah. But Juhu Beach, we all always knew that. I think they've cleaned it recently. I don't know.
Haven't been there in like quite a long time.
I see. I see. I
Yeah.
haven't. I haven't been there too. Well, hopefully someday. We wish to go to Mumbai. Wish
No,
to.
actually, I'm making that up. I actually was there like a few months ago.
Fine.
The water isn't that like I have mixed feelings about it. Like I feel good, but I'm like the thinking mind is like it's not perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah, thinking mind is doing what it's supposed to
Yeah,
do. You know, thinking mind is doing its job, and I think
I want to capture this.
yes, thinking mind. It is possible even to hold thinking mind in a loving space. Sometimes I feel that because that has happened many times where one can see that there are certain things one does not agree with, and the life's flow is not happening as one wants, but still one can embrace that irritation that one experiences with a lot of love. That part can be shown a lot of love. Does not mean love as a feeling, but just, being totally present to that, which I feel is love because mind is quite restful in that state. That can happen in beach, that can happen in the mountains, that can happen anywhere. But it is not that things are quiet because nature is buzzing, vibrating, but there is an immense order to nature's chaos.
Oh yeah,
There is.
it's even its violence is like very beautifully orchestrated.
True. True. Beautiful. So, anybody, any questions or any sharing?
Jagjuji, can I ask you a question?
Anji, sure, please.
If you had to pick one person, okay,
Hmm.
to pick for the this is a completely hypothetical situation, okay? It's just a thought experiment.
Okay.
If you had to pick one person to fall asleep to,
Hmm.
one person to fall asleep to for the next, let's say, 14 days, you
Hmm.
know, and you
Hmm.
just get to pick one person.
Hmm.
This is the speaker or whatever I'm gonna fall asleep to.
Mm-hmm.
Who would you pick? I know it's a
So
bit
speaker,
off the cuff question. Yeah, anybody.
speaker.
It could be anybody.
Oh, okay. Well, if you don't put the condition speaker, then it would be Bhagwan. It would be Bhagwan because I can just fall asleep with his image in my mind. And I think, I mean, right now, just above this wall, I have a picture of Bhagwan. And the eyes, his eyes communicate. Yes,
I have one too. I'll just
yes.
confess.
Uh, his eyes communicate
I know.
everything. So, those eyes are like, you can just fall asleep to those eyes. I have done it. And in fact, I dreamt about Bhagwan. Bhagwan came in my dream. Now, I don't talk much about this since it's a small gathering today. I can share that I actually had a dream, extensively long dream with Bhagwan one time where Bhagwan comes up. And I'm just in a very chaotic place, very, very chaotic place. And he just comes up and gives me some instructions in my ear. He's saying this very sternfully, like he's telling me this is to be done. I do not remember any content. I do not remember any content, what was being said at that time. But I do remember he coming out in his loincloth just the way they show him, in the pictures and saying something. And then it was a long talk. Like I did not say anything. I did not speak a word. And he just whispered something in my ear. And also his eyes were, with his eyes, he was pointing to something. He was hinting to something. And then he goes away and the dream ended. I i very succinctly remember that dream. And for uh for me it was an amazing experience because I never expected that Bhagwan would come in my dream and would give instructions. Now I do not remember a single thing he said in the dream, but whatever was, I think whatever communication needed to happen, it happened. And that was enough for me. So, yes, if there is one person I would just like to have I would like to have an image of in my mind when I sleep, that would be Bhagwan. No other person than Bhagwan. And I think even Ramesh ji had picture of Bhagwan on the top of his wall, and before satsang he would actually bow to Bhagwan. And somebody pointed it out to him, but your guru was Nisargadatta Maharaj, so why do you bow to Bhagwan? And he says that I'm going to the source. I'm going to the source of it all. So I think
He also said Maharaj to ghar ki murgi hai.
yes, yes. He was being playful, I think. True, true.
You
But
know, it's
yes,
crazy that you mentioned that though,
yeah,
Jagjot, because like I've had a similar dream. Like it's a
oh,
very synchronous moment,
yeah.
synchronous city-induced moment right now because I've had similar dreams about Lakshman Ju for some reason. I don't know why.
Mhm.
Where he's like kind of like, scolding me for a few things, but affectionately.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like he's kind of like being like, he's not telling me to do something, but he's like giving me instructions,
Mhm.
like as like a grandfather figure, whatever. Like there was an element of whispering involved in that too.
Yeah, yeah.
So even if it's like, I find like these things, even if they're dreams, okay, just to be skeptical about them for a moment.
Yeah.
Even if they're dreams, it's a good sign that your unconscious mind is thinking about these things and not the other things, that can possibly trouble it,
Yeah, what can be more better than these masters paying a visit in the dream? Even if
right?
it's one's own projection, let it
Why
be. I
not?
mean, what's
What's wrong
the,
with that?
yeah, what's wrong? It's beautiful. Eventually, it's all coming from the great dreamer himself, great, the
Absolutely.
source itself. So it's all being played out by that. So I guess that's all fine. Oh, yeah, so
I
that,
like to sleep to J. Krishnamurti.
oh,
I
yes.
don't know, his voice just like in I don't mean it in a cheeky way. I mean it in a very sincere way. Like when I hear his voice, I find a lot of rest and fullness in me.
Yes.
Have you read have you my favorite book of his is Krishnamurti's Notebook.
Yes.
Oh my God, that book.
Yes. It is
No words are
it is amazing.
can describe that experience.
First
Yeah.
book that I read of J. Krishnamurti was First and the Last Freedom.
Yeah.
And then I read Awakening
The
of
big one.
Intelligence, and then I came to the Notebook. And
Mhm.
beyond that, I didn't feel that I needed to read any other book of his,
Yeah.
because that was, and I found so much similarity between what he was saying and what Bhagwan was saying.
Yeah.
Like Bhagwan even mentions, talks about him in one of the books
He
of
does.
author Osborne, and it was a great, he was just Jiddu Krishnamurti was actually quite brutal in that he was breaking the facade. Like he was saying, don't use these words casually, like Atman, Brahman. Do not use them casually. Like understand what they mean, what is being conveyed here. So he would himself refrain from using those words. But then he was pointing to a space, to an intelligence, and that was the that was his style. That was the brilliance of that man. And of course, with Bhagwan, it was always clear that just go back to your source, go back, trace the eye, and nothing else needs to be done. There is no method, there is no way. Even if you asked him how to do self inquiry, there's no way
Mhm.
to do self inquiry. It's just be with yourself in your presence, and you will be led. When, how, where, we don't know, because we are not in charge. But if the awareness has guided you to this point, then it will surely take you further. That's the idea. Otherwise, we won't be here. Otherwise, you won't be reading about it. You won't be discussing about it. You won't be. One time, I think it was Papaji, and someone came to a young fellow came to meet him from United States, or maybe some other Western country. But this boy said that, um, if it is all will of God, like why should I even attend your satsang? What's the point? Why should I even listen to your talk? If nothing is in my control, then what's the point of this whole setting? And Papaji said, there is no point at all. He said, try going to other teachers. Try. He said, there is a teacher next door. Try him. he said, you think you decided to come here? He said, you think you booked the ticket? You decided to come? There were so many teachers, so many teachings. Why did only my book landed up in your lap? So it is such a beautiful thing. It's like what Bhagwan says, that your head is already in the tiger's mouth. And even to reach there is, I think, grace of God. Even to be at that point. Because some people don't even get to experience that. And it's a constant struggle for them trying to find solutions. None of these masters were ever interested in any solutions, because they're saying you're still operating in the realm of mind. And mind by nature is dualistic, so it will always create the divide. So the constant message was the same: be with the eye, and it will take you where you're destined to go. Okay. So anybody else would like to ask anything?
Hi,
Question.
hi Jagjot.
Hi. Hello, Raghu. Yes, Raghu,
How
tell
are
me.
you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Namaskaram to everybody.
Namaskaram.
I'm doing well. I was not able to join a couple of weeks
No
due
problem.
to, I'm in the time zone, but it's today I was able to join. Happy
Right.
about it.
Okay.
When you were talking about Bhagavan, I just wanted to add one point to it.
Please.
Um, mm, when uh, when Bhagavan was asked, "Who are you, Bhagavan?" Bhagavan's answer was in Tamil. அறியாதீதர ஜீவர தகவாரிஜ குகையில் அறிவாய் ரமி பரமாத்மன் அருணாச்சல ரமணன்.
Okay.
What he says is like in all the ignorant beings, that which dwells, that gives that knowledge, that gives that ability to think, that potential to even come out and say I. in
Yes.
all the in all as an omnipresent,
Yeah.
that is Arunachala Ramanan as a Paramatma. That
Yes.
he told.
Yeah.
I mean, when they asked him, "Who are you? Why are you like this?"
Yeah.
And for that, there was a response like this.
Yes.
And the second question, which recently came, um, they were asking everybody. I mean, you are living in Tiruvannamalai in Ramanashram. I heard that in Ramanashram there is Bhagavan's presence is always felt, and the soul is always there. And for that, the response was, "Where can the I be? It is in you. It is omnipresent." That's what he has told in the first question. Who is he?
Yeah.
So it is in your heart. It is in that hiridayam. It is there.
Yes.
And the common people couldn't even understand. They were still thinking there is an individual soul there, sitting there and guiding. It's
Yes. It was so interesting, you know. I came across a story where, they were chanting Ramana, Ramana, and he started chanting himself, Ramana,
yes.
Ramana, you
That
know.
is called Ramana Sadguru, Ramana
Yes.
Sadguru. He was also singing that.
Yes. He was constantly, he was constantly pointing them to their own self, and which he said is not separate from anything else. That was the core message. And the thing is that his charm was so, captivating that people somehow missed the point, even at that time. And they were still trying to see him, just limit him to that embodied being that was sitting there uh, in that hall. But he clearly pointed out all the time that no, it is not like this. You, it is here. And he says it is here now. And there is, uh, he would say that it does not require effort. It just requires clear seeing. And that's why I think he used many times this word Sommairu. Is it Sommairu or is it Somnairu? I
So
think he
my
used Sommairu, right? Yes, where he would say just drop it, drop and be, right? And and that's like a very direct pointer. Drop and be means just stop conceptualizing. Just stop creating this difference between me and the other. Just rise above, go beyond the form, and merge with it and be it rather than trying to create an object. But we do create an object. Uh, it so happens that now I went to Ramana Ashram myself 2 times, and yes, the vibration there is very high. It is true. Vibration is very high. There is a lot of peace one experiences over there. But again, I do see that there is still there are still lot many people who do not understand what Bhagwan was hinting at. Now, going there with that knowledge that the principle dwells within you is the common essence. Going there with that knowledge has a different effect. I cannot explain it in words. I didn't sit there, I did not meditate there. I just went, I saw, I took a round, and I came back. And when I came back, I was experiencing something which I cannot describe in words because it cannot even be called devotion. I was just experiencing peace. I mean, I'm using the word peace, but I don't know if that word justifies it. But there was clear, very clear seeing of everything. Even the animals outside of the ashram, I could see Ramana's essence in everything at that point, even in the food that I was consuming outside, even in the things that are so perceived as dead. But that I feel that requires going with this understanding that there is no separation, and then it is a different experience altogether. But yes, that said, even if you go with Ramana's image in mind, one will experience a lot of peace. Thank you, Raghu. Thank you for that beautiful share. Would you like to?
I want to ask you one thing where we left before Diwali about
Yes.
this topic on Saranagati, the surrender
Mhm.
of the ego. Uh, I understand that we cannot force it to give us something because it is something which has been given by grace. But then there is this. Okay, so when I go to sleep, there is no I sense; it's completely blank. If there is a dream, this I is taking on another form, creates the world. It doesn't know that is a lie at that moment. And then when it wakes up, we are in this wakeful world. Even at this point, this Jiva doesn't know this is a lie. It's because Bhagavan has said the dream is short lived, the wakeful state is long lived. Other than these two, there is no difference. So, in this, we are also, I mean, I'm doing this sadhana. I do yoga like Shambhavi Mahamudra, Shakti Chalana Kriya, some of the yogasanas, not Sahaja Sthiti, which Jacqueline teaches, but then the other way, Hatha Yoga and all this stuff. And then I wanted to keep up my self-inquiry. I lose the mind draws attention to all those five senses and enjoyment and the pleasures, but then I bring it back, draw the attention back to the self, and this is all I can do. This is all I'm doing.
Mhm.
I'm not kind of that strength. I have it to anchor myself in that throughout. Sometimes when there is a anger coming up, like if why is it getting delayed and optimistic, and I do know that this is totally lie, but then it is like,
Raghu, what is getting delayed? For whom it is getting delayed? That's the question.
yeah. So it's kind of the reactiveness of it.
Yes, yes. No, it is okay. I understand. I understand.
Please guide me towards that Saranagati, right? Even though I wanted to hear from you that sense,
Yes.
this is what I want to have.
You know, I have to be very, very honest with you when we talk about surrender. From what I've seen, from what I've experienced, the process of surrendering is unique for each one of us. It is not that I can give you a method and you use that method and you're going to instantly realize. The only thing to understand here is that the surrender does not require any method, and self-inquiry by Bhagwan is not a method to achieve self-realization. Like he says it clearly that it is a paradox. Like he just gave that instruction. Now it does, make no mistake, it does quiet the mind. And all the kriyas, whether we do Sahaj Yoga or we do Shambhavi or we do any other, uh, you know, Vipassana or any other, basically, these are beautiful, beautiful practices, amazing practices. But at the end of the day, what Bhagwan is doing, he's directing us to the source. Like he's asking who is doing these practices. Just take your mind there. And it is not to be, as you said, that is one thing where I think you have gained a beautiful understanding that it is not to be forced. Because if you force it, then you maintain the separation, the subject object separation, because it is the separate self which is saying, I want to attain it and I want to attain it through this method. Now, self inquiry and surrender are not two different things. However, they appear to be two different things. For me, it was clear that surrender, for me, surrender was the only thing, because self inquiry was an intellectual thing.
Yeah.
And and when I would investigate, I would, yes, I would find out causes for what was going on, for the troubles that were happening in my life. But again, it was an intellectual inquiry, and intellect is a part of the antakarna, of the of the
Mind.
mind instrument, which is a part of the, which is connected to the ahankara as well. So it does borrow elements of ahankara with it. So first of all, I what I tell people is just relax as much as possible, and do not be concerned too much with uh, your quote unquote your liberation or your surrender. Just observe, and of course you can always listen to what masters have said, what wisdom they have given to us, and slowly the mind will automatically start becoming restful. And sometimes it so happens that things get delayed because certain investigation needs to happen in a given mind body organism. Certain things that are not addressed in life needs to be pondered. It can happen like that. So that can include sometimes interpersonal relationships, work, what is one's relationship with one's ideas, thoughts, beliefs. Now again, do not force this. Do not force anything. No amount of effort or force is going to help in this. Let it happen organically and naturally. And automatically your mind will, you will start experiencing subtleness in your life. But yes, one does need to question as to why one is doing whatever he or she is doing. you know it does not mean, I'm not suggesting that we should leave our careers or that we should go to the caves and start doing sadhana. That's not what is meant here. What I am simply saying, that let the observation happen into each aspect of our life, because it is all connected. It is not that things are in isolation. Your life, each and everything happening in your life is connected to everything else that is happening. So, you know, the only, if you want to, do this using self inquiry, I would say let that happen if that is something which brings your mind rest. But ultimately, yes, relaxation is the key. Relaxation is just going to, it's just going to throw you. Now, of course, it is not in our control many times. Sometimes a relaxation will happen, sometimes it will not happen. So we cannot force this process. But whenever the awareness comes, whenever you remember, just relax as much as you can. And when the mind is quiet, you will automatically know what is being implied here. You will automatically see it, and then there will be no question. There will be no, and remember, it is not a state. sorry, it is it is a state. Even that is a state, but it comes back with a different knowledge. So I gave the example in the beginning when I started this talk, that the I, when it experiences, it merges back to its source when introverts on itself. Because when it's not allowed to expand as I am this, I am that, right? This is what Bhagwan said. It merges back into its source. Now, the problem is that we get caught up in the world's game. So, you know, we are like, no, no, I have to do this, I have to do that. Now, getting caught up is not that much of a problem. Identifying with it is not that much of a problem, but holding a tight grasp on it, the the I thought is not able to introvert. So one needs to seriously examine as to what is one's relationship with whatever thoughts or ideas we have right now. For example, if mind is running in one single thought, let's say work related, okay? Work related. If I'm constantly identified with the idea that only my self improvement, only improvement in my work, and whatever accolades or adulation my work brings is going to make me happy, and at the same time one is trying to do self inquiry and trying to attain something, some idea that one has in their mind, then these are two opposing forces. you know Bhagwan is saying the opposite. So he's saying when the mind starts flowing in different direction, in divergent thought, where it says that, oh, but I must attain this, I must get that, things should be okay in this department, in that department, all those things needs to be examined first of all, as to why am I so concerned about life processes. And then the and then in that observation the insight will come, and you will experience that maybe the very idea that I must secure myself somehow through relationships, through perfect relationships, through ideal job situation, professional situation, holds no value. It does not mean one has to quit that. It means is taking it easy, just taking it with the flow, accepting what comes, and just moving with the flow. For me, it just dropped at some point, so I didn't need to move further. It does not mean you have to do the same. What it simply means is you have to examine and assess as to what is what this whole movement is, and why am I moving in this direction or that direction. Only when those questions are answered and sorted, when the awareness comes at that point as to why am I doing all of this, then something different happens. Then what happens is what Bhagwan has said. He has said, you automatically, the eye stops moving outward. It introverts on itself. Now it has no other investigation outwardly. Like it says, okay, fine. I'm okay with job. Whatever happens, happen. I get a promotion, fine. I don't get a promotion, that's also fine. If my family members are happy, that is also fine. If they are not happy, that is also fine, because they are living their blueprint. I am living mine, and everything is happening by God's grace. So who am I to do anything or say anything? I will do my household duties. I will do whatever needs to be done for parents, for family. But ultimately, I am not in control of their happiness. I am not even control of my own happiness. So but yes, the peace is always accessible to me, which is now when that happens, when that is total surrender, then the mind introverts on itself. It's at some point it starts questioning, but let me investigate as to who am I, who really is this I that I think. And that is when it happens. Now it will not become apparent to you as an experience. That is also one thing I say. All you will notice is that your worries will be gone. Now, you may experience worry in the moment. In the moment, anxiety, worry, everything will happen. That cannot be stopped. But it will not stick. As Bhagwan said, the negative thought, it has a sticky nature. But what changes after the knowledge is obtained is that that stickiness goes away. You will experience, but then you will drop it, realizing that it's futile. So that is the only change. So I would say just relax, and just observe what is happening around you. This awareness itself is going to bring the knowledge, and whether it will happen through self inquiry or through surrender or through any other means, leave that to God. Just totally leave that to God. Rest, whatever practices you are doing, those are perfectly fine. And if they help you relax more and, uh, bring clarity to your mind, by all means, I highly advocate do that to them.
Swami Vivekananda said, all we can do is just polish the mirror so
Yes.
that the mirror could catch the reflection better.
Yes, yes, true. That is true. So, let's just, yeah, let's keep polishing the mirror, but not with the expectation that it should bring anything.
Yes, I
Simply,
left it. You
yeah.
told me just leave all those things. You should not force, you should not ask also. You
Yes.
told me that on the first day.
Yeah. Yes, yes.
And you said that Raghu being a subject and you are asking the God to be an object, but it's the other way around.
It's all a beautiful process, and it happens, and it is unique for each one of us. So, if we just leave it and let the God decide how it happens and where it happens and when it happens, well, Bhagwan said self-realization is the simplest thing. It's actually not it to the mind. It appears as if it's a grand event. It'll be like a momentary revelation. Insights and revelations happen all the time to human organism, but that's not what awakening is. That's not what awakening. Insights and revelations are beautiful, but awakening is truly peace. It is like the distinction between me and the other completely goes away. In fact, it is recognized that even the me that I think is separate is an object. Even the small self is an object. And all these objects are being illumined by one consciousness, one source.
There is this quote I wanted to read. Um, all these universes, humans, objects, thoughts, and events are merely pictures moving on the screen of pure consciousness, which alone is real. Shapes and phenomena passes away, but consciousness remains forever.
Yes.
Bhagavan.
Yes. Perfect. Perfect. You know, and one can simply examine this that nothing has ever appeared outside consciousness. Nothing can exist outside consciousness. Even people talk about unconsciousness, but unconsciousness is also a known experience. So it is also made up of a knowing. So, trying to say, even you can't even talk of your unconsciousness as a non-experience. Like everything is
Yes.
pure experiencing. That is what Bhagwan is saying. So he says consciousness, the screen of consciousness is what you are. It cannot be burned by fire. It cannot be made wet with water, you know. So be the screen, don't be the character in the screen, because character is going to change, but the screen never changes. Okay. So I think let's conclude for today. And thank you to all for your beautiful presence and beautiful interaction. And we will meet again next week.
Thank you.